You don't have to join the KKK to be racist. You don't have to rape, pillage, or murder others in order to contribute to the 1,000-year-old, seemingly never-ending problem that is racism.
But under the First Amendment in this country, they have a right to say hateful, awful, and even racist things whether we like it or not.
Sometimes the most dangerous form of bigotry is simply the kind that you don't pay attention to. The kind that isn't outlandish enough to garner wide backlash. Diet racism, as College Humor refers to it, is constantly able to slide by without public objection. But not today. In my eyes, the best way to combat a problem is to attack it at its roots. The most basic form of racism, depicting ethnic and racial groups in a non-positive light, is far too prevalent in Western film and television. One group that gets misrepresented far too often are Eastern American Indians. They're one of the least represented groups to begin with, so the fact that their ethnicity is frequently used as the butt of the joke is insulting and demeaning to their culture as a whole. Rarely in entertainment are Eastern Indians actually just seen as normal people. Their identities are always somehow tied to their ethnic background, whether it be a mathlete, convenience store clerk, tech nerd, or a taxi driver. Indian Americans can never just be presented as human. Today, we will explore some of these false representations and the effects they have on one of the largest ethnic groups in the world. We will examine this essay through the Apu theory, the idea that American portrayals are unjust. In the 2004 cult classic Mean Girls, Kevin G is portrayed as creepy, nerdy, and just plain old out of touch. For one, he is not one of the cool kids. He is a mathlete, and the general high school stigma around mathletes are that they are uncool, or in Regina George's mind, social suicide. Notice how all the popular kids in the movie are white, and the two uncool kids are Asian. Notice how Kevin G, the only Indian in the movie, happens to be one of the weirdest kids in the school. Nobody can ever relate with him, and his peers are constantly giving him a confused look due to his off-putting personality. Is this an accurate representation of the racial hierarchy in Western society, fixed into a microcosmic institution? Does this reflection of adolescent Indian boys make real-life Indians feel good? Probably not. If I had to guess, it probably makes them feel misrepresented, brutally stereotyped, and inferior. Even though the creators of the film, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, don't have bad intentions with their rendition of the funny Indian guy, the depiction still contributes harm nonetheless. Young Indian men's self-confidence becomes slashed when they frequently have people like Kevin G to represent them. I'm sure white people wouldn't want the only white person in a Bollywood film to be portrayed as a weirdo, unrelatable creep show. So why would Indians? Do better, America. A prime example of misrepresentation of East Indian culture in Western media can be found in one of America's most beloved cartoons, The Simpsons. Apu, the local convenience store clerk, was used purely as a foreigner for comedic purposes. His ethnic background was a direct weapon of comedy for Matt Groening. During his appearances on screen, which don't come that often because he's not one of the main characters, he doesn't really act like a real person. He acts exactly how Western media expects an Indian clerk to act. Cheap, silly, and laughable. Put all these together and you get an inaccurate, one-dimensional, and minimized depiction of Indians everywhere. Not to mention, he's voiced by a white person, Hank Azaria. This goes to show when you have an outsider's depiction of someone else's ethnicity, it will more likely than not come off as exaggerated and racist. Thus exemplifying the need for diversity in Hollywood, so that the world is seen through multiple perspectives rather than just white people's. This depiction of Apu is enough to gain plenty of controversy, and luckily the creators of the show made changes early on to avoid any misconceptions. A lesser-known Kevin G character, Zahid from Atypical doesn't exactly do the culture many favors with his weird, annoying, and creepy personality. Zahid is constantly giving bad advice while making a fool of himself and lacking any sense of self-awareness.
Sometimes I wish I was
Not racist in the way that Apu is, but this caricature of the out-of-touch Indian seems to keep
He's the best of us.
All on most shows, the Indian asks for advice from the white man because they are supposedly clueless and don't know how the world works. Atypical flips the script. This time the Indian is the advice giver. Only one issue. He gives advice to a boy who has autism that doesn't realize that his advice is terrible. Once again, Western media fails to create a respectable foreign character.
I'm just good at playing weird. That's what it is.
Now, one may argue that every culture has their fair share of over-stereotyped characters, and that there are plenty of normal portrayals of Indians out there. Although this is partially true, Indians also have much less representation in Western media than other cultures, thus making every individual depiction much more important to the respective image of their culture. Comparatively, white people will have an extremely wide array of representation in society, so they can afford to have a few bad apples in the group more than Indians can.
Tell me you speak English. I'm Detective Carter. Do you speak any English? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? The pathway to
Every culture deserves a good image because every culture has good people in it. If a group is only represented by its worst people, it disempowers that group while simultaneously raising the already established superiority of the in-group. One way we can start to level out all this outdated nonsense is by putting more emphasis on diversity and respect. Elevate more minorities to meaningful roles in society, examine and eliminate your current prejudices, and educate your peers on the benefits of an inclusive world.
What advice do you have for Asian Americans aspiring to get into entertainment?
Don't ask questions like that. You can do anything white people can do.